Anything we should be talking about before we look at beeps? I think this is going to be like day 10 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not really keeping track, but that sounds good.
I haven't,
Um,
I'm not sure either, but I think it's in the ballpark of that.
yeah, I
Anything we should be talking about before we do that?
think we could just go right in.
All right, let's do it.
So, first beep, I'm looking at Tinder, um, and I'm sort of absorbing what I'm seeing, and I'm absorbed in the activity of swiping. Um, I'm thinking of the particular profile I'm looking at that the person is attractive. And I think I notice that because it gives you the age, I think I noticed the age too, and that she's quite young. Um, so I don't know how many components that is, but another component is I have a degree of anxiety around the experience, uh, and it's sort of diffuse and not fully coherent, but it's maybe something like I'm worried about not being liked back by the people I find most attractive. Um, so that's another component. Third component, I guess, is I'm listening to a podcast without much comprehension, but I've pick out the words that just came or the sentence that was the last one right before the beep. And so I process those words I put down came out a year and a half earlier. That is the phrase that I heard. Um, and then I have a final component, which is um, I have an image, sort of a mental image of the previous guy I had swiped. We had matched, so we had both swiped, right? So I had a sort of not not especially clear and not as if I was seeing it right before me, but some kind of mental image impression of this previous profile. Specifically, I remember long blonde hair and a dog in the picture, and that's it.
Okay, well, let's count those as four things. And did you list them in order of prominence, or should we list them in order of salience or prominence, or?
Um, definitely definitely one is way more prominent. Um, so that's almost 60 or 50% maybe. Um, then the anxiety around it is fairly strong as well. And then the the podcast and the image of the previous profile are the least prominent.
So 60, 20, 10, 5, or something like that. I guess it'll be 10,
Um,
10, 60, 20, 10, 10.
yeah,
They
yeah,
don't have,
that sounds good.
they don't have to add the 100, but something like that in terms of relative prominence.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Then let's take a look at the first one. So there's sort of a lot of activities there. I'm seeing,
Mhm.
I'm swiping, I'm finding attractive and young. Do all those things seem present in my experience, or is some of them just an action that I'm taking?
Um, well, I would say that my whole being is sort of absorbed in this experience. That's why I counted them as one thing. Yeah, I think they're all in my experience and not just actions I'm taking. I'm sort of dynamically involved in evaluating these profiles and swiping left or swiping right. So
Okay.
this is all in the moment of evaluation.
And is the swiping and the attractiveness and the youngness all sort of equally just part of the, you can't break these apart into
Swiping maybe a little less because I think I'm about to swipe at this moment. I'm not currently swiping, but I'm sort of absorbed in sort of getting ready to swipe. Um, and I think I think the most prominent is my evaluation of the face I'm seeing.
Okay. And and the evaluation, Amber is joining us here.
Hi, I'm so sorry. There were
No
just
problem.
some issues with getting into an office today.
No problem. So we're halfway through the first sample. You can just watch what's going on here, and
Okay.
then we'll move on from there. And so the evaluation is the evaluation. Well, how does that present itself? What does evaluation mean?
Um, it means I'm thinking, but not with inner speech, or not with inner speech isn't the most prominent thing to me at the moment. It's just sort of like an internal thought process that is sort of making this evaluation. So
And so is it
I find that the
more an evaluation? So the results of this, I guess, or you could say the content of it or whatever, is that she's attractive and young. And
um,
is that a cognitive thing, or is that I am attracted to her
uh,
youngness?
it, it's both cognitive and affective. Um, so I'm making a cognitive evaluation of her, and I also feel, I don't know, some sort of pleased by the image or something. So there's some sort of affective evaluation. Um, the youngness, was sort of noticing the age that TikTok has presented because and I don't know what my evaluation around the age and the attractiveness is at that moment. Um, but it's sort of maybe uh it's sort of like a almost separate component to just the attractiveness. But linked somehow. I don't know. I don't know if I don't, this
Okay.
might not be making any sense. You might want to ask for.
So what I'm gathering here is that it's hard to tease these things apart, actually. That
Mhm.
she the face appeals to me, and I at the same time somehow analytically conclude this she's attractive. So it's not just that her face appeals to me, but that I am
No.
somehow recognizing cognitively, I guess you could say, that she's attractive.
Right.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And and the absorbed in what I'm seeing, is that like a sort of an overview of what we've been saying here? Or is it I am somehow recognizing myself as being absorbed?
Um, well, I don't think I have a self-conscious thought of I'm very absorbed in this, but maybe that is an overview, but it's sort of there's sort of the cognitive component is very linked to this physical relationship I have with the screen and the sort of swiping I'm doing. So I think um, that's my best way of describing that is absorbed, but maybe you have a better,
Okay.
maybe you don't want to include that word or something since it's sort of like a post hoc reflection or something. I don't know.
Well, I guess I don't really care about the words, but what I'm gathering is that somehow the act of swiping or preparing to swipe is sort of present to me, and maybe more so the attractiveness is present to me. Both I'm feeling attracted and I am somehow cognizing about the attraction and somehow about the age. But the absorption is not present in the same way as those other things.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm good about that aspect. Then the next aspect is a diffuse anxiety. And that is about what we've just been talking about. Is that right? That this particular face, person, whatever, would not find me liked back, not like me back.
Yeah, it's yeah, something like that, that the people I find most attractive aren't swiping back on me or something like that. Or
Mhm.
maybe something like that. All the men swipe left on me, but very few women or something. Something like that. I can't yeah, it's
Mhm.
the same. It's not exactly voiced in your speech, but it's just sort of it has a cognitive element and an affective element. And the affective element is at this moment I don't experience as especially bodily, is mostly mental. Um,
So what I've got of that portion is it's it's enough specific that I know that it's about will they swipe me, like me, or whatever back, and
yeah,
and maybe an impression that the men do and the women don't, or something like that. Is that part of the
yeah, that's
so
good.
that's so there's an analytical or cognitive or whatever and affective portion to this thing that we're calling
Um,
the anxiety. Okay. And then there is the podcast. And about the podcast, I can say these are the words that are present, came out both a year and a half earlier. And so I would like to know, does it seem like that those words are created by the task? The beep comes, and I know Russ is going to ask me about the words, and so I'm going to grab those words. Or does it seem like I've already grabbed those words, even though I'm not really much paying attention to the podcast? I have somehow already grabbed those words, and that's
um, I think it's the latter, but it's a little hard to know. Um,
and the latter being is I've already grabbed those words.
yeah, I've grabbed those words.
Okay. And and by grab those words, do we mean that I'm somehow registering those words rather than what they mean? Or
Yes.
so this is about the words being present to me somehow,
Mm,
not so much the meaning or not so much actually the whole podcast. I have
right,
grasped those words, but I haven't yet integrated that into the into the
right.
broadcast podcast process. Okay. And then there is some visualization of the previous matching.
Yeah.
And that is seen. So I somehow see blonde hair dog, but not clearly, as opposed to
Yeah.
I somehow remember that this guy had blonde hair and a dog.
It's somehow seen. Yeah.
Okay. But not clearly seen.
Yeah.
Clear enough to be able to say I saw the dog to the right or to the left or
Clear enough to say the dog was below.
okay. And below, as in a separate seeing, I see the guy and I see the dog,
No, he's sort of like holding the dog or something.
but the
He's been,
the dog is lower down or whatever.
yeah.
Okay. And and the blonde hair, do I see the whole guy? And now when I'm telling Russ about it, I can say, well, he was blonde, he was holding a dog, or have I invested more of my photons or whatever into the blondness than I have into the rest of it?
Well, the long blonde hair, I know those are sort of the only visual features that sort of remain with me from the scenes. So if you ask me to describe his face, I wouldn't be able to, or what shirt he was wearing, I wouldn't be able to. But I sort of those those are a few of the visual cues that sort of remain with me.
Okay. And is the blonde hair seen clearly? And so when we're saying, well, I'm not seeing this whole thing clearly, is I see the blonde hair clearly, but I just don't see the rest of it clearly? Or is I don't even see the blonde hair clearly, but clearer than the rest of it?
I'm a little unsure what clearly means in this context. I kind of have like a visual impression of it. Um, it's not extremely detailed. It's sort of, yeah, but it's just, I'd say since I just saw the image, it's not totally diffuse either.
Okay.
But it's not especially clear, I guess.
Mhm. Then I think I'm good.
All right.
So, Amber, you want to do number two, or you want to just watch one more time while you taper into the
Could I watch one more?
sure. Number two.
So as a matter of fact, I'm watching a movie. Um, Visually and experientially, I'm seeing what's in the movie, um, and I'm taking special. There's a lit cigarette that I'm sort of especially visually seeing and consciously that I'm conscious of at that moment. Um, I'm comprehending what they're saying, um, but there's one word that's sort of I think the last word, but that I've sort of like somehow latched onto, which is the word lingerie. Or yeah, so I guess that's maybe two things. Um, and the third is I'm anxiously thinking about a paper I have to write and whether um, the paper is it's too late for me to do it over the weekend, or if Joel wanted me to do it on Tuesday or Thursday instead. Um, so that is sort of a cognitive anxiety and also a bodily anxiety, diffuse bodily anxiety, but that might be especially prominent in the chest.
And in order of prominence to you, the
Um,
movie, cigarette, lingerie, comprehension, paper.
about equal.
Okay. Then let's start with the movie. So the movie scene is on. I'm understanding that I'm being carried along by the movie. I know what's going on in the movie. I'm watching what's going on in the movie. But at this particular moment, I'm mostly, or more so anyway, aimed at the cigarette.
Um, yeah, I'd say that's a detail that I noticed especially clearly in the scene.
And you call it a lit cigarette. Does that mean I see particularly the
The
ash,
lit end of the cigarette.
the, and as a colored thing or as a,
Yeah, as an orange color that stands out.
so am I, does it make sense to ask, am I attracted to the orange of this display or am I attracted to the lit cigarette of this display or, and maybe attracted is too strong a word, but aimed at,
Yeah, the fact that it's the brightest thing on screen, the fact that it sort of draws the eye into it. Um, the
so
yeah,
the brightness of these pixels on the screen is what draws me.
yeah.
The brightness more than the orangeness or the bright
No, I'd
orangeness.
say both. I'd say I actually don't know. Let's keep it. That sounds right. The brightness, the orangeness, the
More than
luminosity.
more than the cigaretteness.
Ye- but it's a brightness I very much associate with. This is me maybe evaluating after the fact, but it's sort of like a brightness I associate with maybe past times I've seen a lit cigarette. It sort of has like an iconicity that draws
Okay.
the eye to it. It's like you see a cigarette and you're like, oh, that's a cigarette.
Okay. Then I think I'm good about that portion. And then the movie characters are saying something that has the word lingerie in it. Is that right?
Yeah. And I understand the line, so I'm listening with comprehension. I've understood the line that he just has said, but the word lingerie is particularly sticks out, sticks out at the moment of the beep. Um,
And I've asked this before, but I want to make sure I understand it. I think the sticking outness, what I would like to know is whether the sticking outness is present without being caused by the beep. So if there were a parallel universe, this is, I guess, the question, another way of asking the question. If there were a parallel universe which is exactly the same as this universe except no beeper, and at exactly the same time as this beep went off, would the word lingerie have been sticking out for you? Or would
yeah,
you
I
have
would.
you would have latched onto that?
Yes.
So the way it seems to you, and I'm not trying to get anything more the way than what it seems to you, but the way what I understand is it seems to you that I have latched onto the word lingerie on its own merit, whatever, not because particularly it's the last word, but because I've latched onto that.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything more to say about the latching onto how that is experienced?
Um, I think that's nothing that wouldn't confuse things more. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
it's not like you say lingerie in inner speech or whatever, and not like you see that word written or the rest of them are just spoken,
No,
but
no.
somehow there's some made present to me of the word lingerie.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the paper.
Yeah.
And I'm gathering this is somehow an anxious and a cognition. The cognition is, should I do it over the weekend or Monday or Tuesday or Thursday? Oh, Monday, I guess, over the weekend or Tuesday or Thursday. That's an analytic process that's somehow present to you at the moment of the beep.
Yeah.
And at the same time, or part of the same process is I am anxious. That's at least
Right. Yeah.
partially bodily. And the partially bodily seems like in my chest in some way.
Yeah.
Anything more to say about that?
That's about it.
All right. I'm good. You good, Amber?
Yep.
On to number three. And you or me, Amber.
I can do number three.
Okay.
Okay. Number three. So the first component, is I've just read a line that says, well, as a matter of fact, I am reading reviews for a film on Letterboxd. Maybe that's some important context. Um, and these are just reviews from my quote unquote network of friends. Um, so I've just read a line. Someone has written, he's not going anywhere, but at least he's not going alone. Um, so at the moment of the beep, sort of the meaning of that is stuck with me. Um, uh, and a second component maybe is I'm evaluating that as a good line, and as maybe pithy, and I'm sort of wondering if I should write something about the movie, and if I could come up with something that cogent to say about it. Um, a third component is I'm feeling anxiety, which is especially seems sort of diffuse bodily, but especially prominent in the chest. Um, six, or no, rather, the fourth component is I'm somehow experientially, bodily feeling discomfort because of the way the computer is sort of digging into my chest. Um, and maybe separate, maybe the same, but I also feel discomfort because I feel like I have to pee.
Okay. And is there anything else at the moment of the beep?
That's it.
Okay. Okay. And of these, is there anything that's more prominent in your experience?
Probably the cognition. Um, so evaluating the line that I've just read and wondering what I would say about the film.
Okay. So let's start there. I I guess tell me how that's present in your experience, this evaluation.
Um, so um, it's not in explicitly in words or speech. It's just sort of inner thought. Um, but it's sort of um, it's sort of uh, making the line I read sort of as sort of the intentional object that I'm thinking about. So I'm sort of like pleased by what that by what the line is saying about it sort of expresses something true, and I'm sort of thinking about the truth of what it expresses, and then sort of I may be a little more anxiously uh, wondering if I have anything true to say about it. Um, yeah, any prompts about how I should describe how it's present to me or
No, that
anything?
was helpful. I was just wondering if this, oh, did my computer just go off?
I still hear you
Oh,
right now,
okay,
but you're
sorry. I
frozen.
think my screen just glitched. If you can still hear me, that's fine.
Okay.
But the what I was going to ask is that makes it set this sound like a cognitive affective kind of mixture of things. I hear this positive evaluation, but then this anxious, I don't know what to say to that. Is that kind of
Yeah,
what's going on? Okay.
yeah.
And in this evaluation, I understand this evaluation is about the line I just read.
Right.
It's about that, but is the line I just read in your experience at all?
Yes, the line is in my experience, sort of like, but sort of as a totality. Um, sort of what it expresses is in my experience. Um, and maybe something in the line itself since I just read it, but it's not as if it's not as if it's not as if the I think the meaning is sticking out to me more than the individual words, perhaps,
Okay.
at that
And
moment.
and the meaning being is it more specific? Like is it like this mean
You just froze
Oh,
for a little bit.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
I
was
heard
saying
this being.
I was I was asking if this is about like you're saying the meaning of the line is there. Is it like is that just is it just the meaning of it is there, or is it there's truth to this, or is there like a specific, is it more specific or is it general like
Um, it's sort of the fact maybe it's expressing something about like the deadbeatness of this character in the film, and sort of the see, it's hard to express what about this is held in the moment I'm thinking about it, but it's expressing something about the way it constructs a social world around this deadbeat character, I guess. Um, so um, yeah, it's constructing something realistic and authentic about a deadbeat character, I guess.
okay.
Um,
So the real so I'm evaluate the real the authenticity of the deadbeatness of the character is there, and and this all comes into this evaluation, and can I write something?
yeah, that's coming
I don't
to
know if that,
that, that's sort of meaning that I just express authenticity of surrounding deadbeat character. That's sort of somehow it not necessarily in those exact words,
right,
but that is what the line is expressing to me. Um, so that's sort of, not in those words, but that's sort of
right.
what I'm getting from it.
Okay. Oh, Dr. Herbert, were you going to say something?
So I am appreciating this line, and that
Mm.
appreciation comes from what it expresses about this deadbeat guy. But I'm not thinking about his
Mm.
deadbeatness in particular. I'm thinking that
Right.
this line is somehow a good line.
Yeah.
Um, and the now the part about it, if I could write something as good as that is, I hear that these are kind of like these are one thing but separate different characteristics. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it's one experience but has kind of like two non-separate separable parts to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how specifically to divide them, but yeah, that seems
Yeah.
about right. It's sort of
Okay.
responding to the line is one thing, and then there's sort of like an anticipation um, of if I should write something about the movie or if I could write something that expresses something.
Okay. And I think earlier we said that there's like this anxious anticipation, or is that kind of going into the next thing?
They kind of fit into each other, I guess, but they're may yeah, I'm always have a hard time knowing whether to put the anxiety with that or as a separate thing. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's an anxiety that at this moment is maybe expressing itself in this thing, but it's kind of an overarching anxiety as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
So can I stick with the thinking part? Because the thinking is pretty complicated when you stop to think
Yeah.
about it. This is a
Right.
good line, that it's a pithy line. Those seem like they might be separate things. And then there's should I write something about it, which is a sort of a separate deal. And then if I wrote about it, would that be any good? Could I write something
Cool.
cogent? Do those seem
Yeah.
like a bunch of separate thoughts that are somehow connected together, or does that seem like sort of one
Oh.
cognitive, evaluative thing that both evaluates the line and whether I should write it?
They're somehow separable. I mean, they kind of blend together, but they're somehow. a difference between do I have something to say and should I even write something about this movie? So I think there's some ability to separate these things.
But they're all cognitive. Those are all cognitive aspects.
Yeah, but link to the effective, I guess, especially the if I could write something about it part. It sort of has this anxiety to it.
Okay. Do you have any other questions about that part?
Nope.
No? Okay. And then there's the diffuse bodily anxiety um, in the chest, prominently in the chest.
Right.
Is this, I guess, is this felt only in my chest? Am I only focusing on my chest? It's just the most intense there? Or I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how the chestiness plays here.
Um, the chestiness, well, it's the anxiety is more broad, but I'm uh I think experiencing if you would ask me later why I was feeling it, especially prominently in the chest, I might say it was because of pain,
Mhm.
but I'm not consciously registering. I'm not especially consciously registering pain. I'm mostly registering anxiety and sort of feeling it bodily.
Okay. So at the moment of the beep, I'm mostly feeling bodily anxiety in the chest, but it's not that I'm particularly focused on my chest or pain or am I getting like this?
Um, yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
And can I ask about does the anxiety seem like its own thing, or does the anxiety seem like it's sort of part of the can I write this stuff? Would I have anything cogent to say?
I think they blend together. I think it's part of that, but it's also um, somehow maybe separable.
So does that mean like the anxious feeling doesn't seem like it comes only from this particular evaluation, but
Yeah, that's correct.
okay.
Then there's the bodily discomfort part.
Mm.
So I hear that the computer is in fact digging into me. And is that present in your experience that the computer-ish, the computer part, I guess? Or is it just that that's a fact of the universe, the computer is digging into me and I'm feeling discomfort?
Um, it's sort of I'm sort of feeling this bodily discomfort from a number of things. So it's sort of the computer digging me into me, sort of feeling like my bladder is full and I have to pee. So these sort of like all things that I'm sort of feeling bodily and maybe somehow consciously, but not as, but I'm sort of the sum totality of them is sort of almost like they're directing me to need to get up and go downstairs and or something.
Okay. And are these, I take it sounding like these are two no doubt sources that are causing discomfort. Are they felt? Is so for them, am I feeling the discomfort in my bladder region? And I'm feeling discomfort in the chest region or wherever the computer is digging into? Is it like separable like that? Or is it just I'm feeling a discomfort? No doubt it's from the bladder and the computer, but really it's just
I
discomfort.
think I think they're separable and nameable.
Okay. And is
So
it, oh,
does
go
that
ahead.
mean I feel the computer digging into my chest? and I feel my bladder, and
Yeah.
there's no additional, and that registers as a bodily discomfort. So I've got two partial discomforts, which then I can, when I tell these guys about it, I can say, well, that's a bodily discomfort, but it's really two separate discomforts.
Yeah, it's separate. Separate.
And I think I'm good.
I think I'm good too.
And well, I guess I want to double back because we've all these samples today so far have been three or four or five ongoing things that we are saying they're all present to me experientially at the same time. And I want to make sure that we understand that. I understand that. So it's not like when I take stock, or this is a question, is it that when I take stock, I can say, well, I got this aspect and this aspect and this other aspect? Or does it seem like those things are already going on regardless of whether I took stock of that? And by going on, I mean before the footlights of my consciousness.
I feel like those things are going on before the footlights of my consciousness, sort of,
So I've got multiple simultaneous strands of experience that would be going on in this alternate universe that was the same as this universe except no beep. I would be feeling these, in this case, I guess, four strands of experience, experiencing these four strands simultaneously at the same moment as the beep occurred.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the way I've understood it. Just wanted to make sure. On to number four.
Before.
All right. So, um, I'm playing chess, um, and I'm sort of visually comprehending the pattern of the chess pieces and what's happening on the board. Um, I am cognitively thinking that my knight is well positioned to attack my opponent's bishop, um, and I'm sort of playing through options of what he'll do with the bishop, whether he'll move the bishop or not. Um, so I don't know if that's one or two things, but and then the third thing is that I've sort of cognitively and effectively thinking about or feeling dumb and inadequate, thinking about being seen as stupid and not politically engaged enough or savvy enough. Um, so that's sort of an anxious, affective, and cognitive process. So, and that's it.
And is one of those more salient than the other?
Hmm.
The chess and the dumb inadequate.
They're mostly there's it's 60-40, maybe 60 being the well, no, I'd say 50-50.
And if you had said 60, would the 60 have been towards the inadequate or the chess?
The inadequacy.
All right. Well, let's start there. So that what you described is a fairly complex sort of self-analysis, I guess. Dumb, inadequate, stupid, politically savvy enough, whatever. Are the Is that one thought that has a lot of facets to it that I need to name them separately when I talk to these guys, or is it like a four or five separable strands of thinking that occur at this moment? I'm not politically savvy. I'm not politically savvy enough.
I think
To,
we can pare it down to uh, and if mm, to feeling feeling stupid and not. I feel like it's one thing, sort of.
Okay.
Um,
And is it more a feeling thing or more a
it's
cognitive
both. It's a cognitive process and a feeling.
and more so one than the other?
Equal.
Okay. And the feeling portion of it, that's the I feel stupid portion, I gather.
Mm,
How do,
Yeah.
how does that present itself to you?
Um, it's sort of like a cringing at myself or uh, um, it's sort of like an anxious um, uh, yeah, I don't know how to describe it much more. An anxious feeling that I'm dumb, sort of like a cringing and sort of like a self-loathing aspect to it.
Okay. And is that
And
a
like
bodily cringing or a mental, mostly mental thing?
um, uh, both, I think.
And bodily in what way? If,
Maybe the anxiety and the kind of feeling of regret, I guess.
so one can feel anxiety and regret both bodily and or either bodily and or mentally.
Yeah, I'd say mine is both.
And in some particular part of your body.
No.
Excuse me. And and when I say I feel stupid or think stupid or whatever, is that is it then also not politically savvy or not savvy enough, or is that what I mean by stupid?
Um,
In this particular case, I feel stupid. I could say I feel not politically savvy enough.
I think it's both of those things.
So it's not just that stupid does not just mean not politically savvy enough. It's I feel
Right,
stupid and part of that or along with that or whatever feel not politically savvy enough.
right.
Okay. All right. I think I'm good with that unless you got questions, Amber. Then there's the chess portion.
Mm,
And I'm seeing the board. I'm noticing that my knight is positioned and I'm thinking about options that the other guy might do with his bishop.
Yeah.
And is how do how does all that is that like one impressionistic kind of a thing or three separable
Well,
things?
it's sort of like picking out the placement of my knight, registering the bishop, and then there's so that's sort of like a seeing of the board right now, I think, and seeing of what the pieces are now, and then there's sort of like an imagining of what they'll do. Um, so the current position is directed towards what'll happen, and I'm sort of imagining him retreating his bishop, although it's not, it's hard to say what that imagining looks like. I'm not sure. There may be a visual aspect of it, but if so, it's not especially clear. But there may be some imagining of the bishop moving. Um,
So is that to say that the bishop moving is in the visual realm but not seen? And you have frozen.
Visually and geometric possibility. I don't know.
So you froze during the almost all of that answer. So I was asking something about visualization and seeing, and I didn't
Yeah.
hear any response to that.
Um, yeah, there's sort of like a visual and geometric. Um, there's a visual component to it, but there's also sort of like a, I'm not going to say mathematic, but there's just sort of like a, I don't know. You know what? Describing chess is hard. I would say there's sort of like a visual and geometric field of possibility for what can happen with the pieces, and I'm sort of imagining imagining a visual movement of the bishop, and then a simultaneous changing.
You have frozen again. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Maybe we should restart the call.
Yeah, that could very well be. You want to hang up and come back and we'll do one more.
Okay, sure.
That's assuming that the issue is on his end. I guess I should pause this. So I paused the recording while you were gone.
Mm. So you were asking if it's just visual, and I was saying visual is a large part of it, but it seems to me, and this is very hard to describe, but there's some sort of geometric, mathematical state to the game that is not solely visual, but it's not that I can put that into words at the moment, but I sort of imagine the possibilities, you know, I'm anticipating the possibilities of this movement.
I'm guessing that's as good as we're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is, I think you're right. Chess is hard. So let's do one more. We're coming up on an hour, but let's do one. Let's do one more.
Well, that's actually all I got. So,
All right. Well then, good. Shall we do this again?
yeah.